Welcome, everybody. Today we're going to talk about 21st century transformation strategies. And so I thought I'd start with this diagram, which is, I put up here mainly to make me look smart, because I don't really get what's going on here. But in the middle of the picture is the 2020 Observer. And so I wanted to just kind of set the stage to think about where are we in our journey for digital transformation. And, we're 2 decades into the 21st century, but many of us are still running our business like we did last century. And even when I, listen, even at this conference, to folks talking about digital transformation, I hear a lot of things that I really wonder if it's really digital transformation. Because, I'm starting to hear again, like, well, we've been doing this for a long time in one form or another. Yeah, maybe you have, but if that's the only vision that you have of digital transformation, you might not be doing it right. On the other hand, this whole notion of digital transformation, it's quite a loaded topic. There's so many expected benefits. Customer satisfaction and new products and, different work culture, better decision making. There's a huge list. So, we see that, and that's in line with, the kinds of problems that we are trying to solve, I think. So I have this, technology deployment S-curve, which you're probably familiar with. Maybe not the curve, but the pieces of it. There's a planning process, a piloting, typically scaling, and then fully deployed. Well, I put that up there so you could, to help us interpret this chart, which is an adoption of transformation technologies. This is some data from a survey that I have active right now. So it's a little bit of a preview of the survey. So it's some preliminary results. But what this shows is that there are a lot of technologies. This just happens to be a list of about 15 or so. And many companies are either in the blue on the left, fully deployed in some of these already, surprisingly. Some are scaling, many are scaling, and then even more are piloting. So there's a lot of activity going on already across this whole range of technologies. And some of them are a little surprising for this OT conference, because cloud native apps and robotic process automation and cloud application and IoT platforms and even advanced analytics, there are a lot of companies that are actively scaling this already. So that's pretty impressive. I'm sure there are a lot more that aren't, but in our survey, this is an interesting result. Another dimension is that, that chart I just showed you really focuses on the bottom of this. If I have the bottom part of this chart here. So it's, the production system, basically, production operations. But companies are transforming throughout their organization. So their engineering and design, their supply chain, their business, out through customers. They're inventing and reinventing their services, and their products are becoming smart and connected. So there's a lot of change going on. And as you can see, you might not be able to read all the bars on the left, but basically companies are working on all of these in some form or another. So it's really a challenge. So if we think about the technology adoption curve on the left here, it works pretty well for consumers. If I, see a new phone, then I buy it and then I'm on the curve. But in the industrial space, it's a lot more complicated, because I still have to, no matter where I start on the left-hand curve, I can be a laggard, but I still may be 4 years before I'm fully deployed. And that could cost me severely in the market. So we've got to think about that as well. So moral of the story is we better get started. So I put together a list of some of the hot topics that we're hearing about for 2020. I won't go through all of them now because I want to have some time for our speakers, but sustainability and digital transformation is becoming hot. Automation, data automation and management, as opposed to process automation. Machine learning and analytics, and cyber physical systems in Industry 4.0, and IT tech for OT. These are some of the top ones that we keep hearing about and people are very interested in. The sustainability, I'll just take a couple of these as an example. What does it mean? It doesn't only mean, I want to be able to run my plant. You've got to be able to drive down energy usage, start thinking about traceability and ethical sourcing. How do I reduce my carbon footprint? Maybe I need to think about building upgradable, long-life products and recyclable products and packaging. So I can think about how to make my delivery logistics much more energy efficient. And to do that, you're going to require a lot of the technologies that we went through on some of the earlier slides. Machine learning and analytics and operations software and blockchain. And there's a whole list of technologies. But it's not about the technologies. In this case, it's about how do I do sustainability, because that's part of what I need to do in my digital transformation initiative. And then I'll touch on this one as well. This is the notion of data and computing resources can be deployed in many places now. They can be at the edge, they can be at the data center, they can be in a cloud, or they can be in multiple clouds. Or they can be in other places as well. But the question then becomes, well, who's the best, who do you want to rely on for your data automation and management? How do you think about where that data goes? How do you think about where that app lives? And how are you going to manage that? And, all these people are arrayed around the center here. All these kind of companies, will help you with at least part of that. And a lot of them will tell you they can help you with all of it. So it's becoming an interesting area of competition. And it's important because if you get this right, then you can get your digital transformation right. Last, I just want to talk about a little bit about the 21st century operations ecosystem. And this is kind of a busy chart, but the main point of it is that we're moving, and in many cases have moved past the day when our plant was our plant and our people were in there, and that's what we did. So I tried to show here that now we're dealing with multiple plants, and we've got to consider the data coming from those plants in various kinds. We've got various kind of applications to deal with. But at the end of the day, we have our own internal actors, but we also have the external actors. The third-party parts supplier, the specialized services provider, the machine monitoring service, the machine builders. A lot of different players that want and probably arguably should have a role in keeping your plant up and running efficiently for your purposes. So how do we get there? A lot of us are used to thinking of kind of a Purdue model approach, which is essentially kind of a bottom-up approach. And how do we get from that to a holistic perspective that's customer-centric? Well, you have to focus on the customer and innovation. You have to identify the new boundary-crossing operating and business processes. You have to then identify the technologies and security and architecture that fits, and the business justification, and then finally select the solutions that you want. And then you have to deploy it, build expertise, create new cultural and workforce norms. That's all. Nothing to it. But digital transformation is a process. And we're moving as an industry from a focus on local and siloed and procedural operations to integrated and responsive and optimized operations. So with that, I want to thank you for listening, and I want to introduce my first speaker.